Do you ever feel like you're just going through the motions? That the world is full of cheap copies and disposable things, and you're one of them? Do you look at your life, your job, your relationships, and wonder where the substance is? Why does it all feel so separate, so broken into pieces that don't quite fit? Is there a deeper way to live, a way to mend what's broken, to find value in the overlooked, to turn the lead of everyday life into something that feels like gold? Number 15, why does the process matter more than the prize? Isaac Newton spent more time on alchemy than he did on physics or mathematics. Over 1 million words of his alchemical notes still exist. The famous Rosicrucian manifestos of the early 17th century, which sparked a European intellectual frenzy, were likely written by a small group of German students as an elaborate intellectual game. They never expected it to be taken so seriously. Many alchemical texts were intentionally written in code, using complex allegories involving dragons, kings, and queens, not just to protect secrets, but to ensure the reader was spiritually and mentally prepared to understand the work. We live in a world obsessed with results, the final product, the bottom line, the finished piece. We want the gold, and we want it now. We skip to the end of the book. We want the promotion without the grind. We want the perfect body without the daily effort. But the alchemist knew something different. The true work wasn't about the lump of gold at the end. That was just proof the work was done correctly. The true work was the process. It was the slow, patient, and often frustrating transformation. Think about the old alchemical instructions. They didn't say, mix A and B to get C. They said things like, let the crow devour the peacock's tail, then bathe the king in the queen's milk for 40 days. This wasn't a recipe, it was a meditation, it was a command to observe, to be patient, to understand the nature of the materials you were working with. It forced you to slow down, it demanded your full attention, you couldn't rush it. You couldn't multitask while gestating a philosophical dragon, you had to be present. Do you find yourself drawn to activities that have no real point other than the activity itself? Maybe you love kneading bread. The physical sensation, the way the dough changes from a shaggy mess to a smooth, elastic ball. The end result, a loaf of bread, is nice, but the real magic happened in the 10 minutes of kneading. Or maybe you tend a garden. You spend hours weeding, watering, watching for pests. The harvest is the goal, sure, but the real connection happens in the daily tending, the quiet observation of a seed sprouting, a vine climbing, a flower opening. That's the alchemical mindset. This is a quiet rebellion against a culture of instant gratification. Our world is built on efficiency and shortcuts. We have life hacks and productivity tips to squeeze every last drop of result from our time. The modern-day alchemist, however, instinctively understands that some things cannot be hacked. You can't hack trust in a relationship, you can't hack wisdom, you can't hack the deep satisfaction of mastering a skill. These things are products of time and dedicated process. They are the result of showing up, day after day, and doing the work. This love of process shows up in small ways. It's the person who repairs their own clothes, not just to save money, but because they enjoy the simple act of mending. It's the programmer who enjoys refactoring code, cleaning it up, making it elegant, even if no user will ever see the difference. It's the musician who spends hours practicing scales. The scales aren't the song, but the scales are the transformation. They are the slow, patient work that turns clumsy fingers into instruments of expression. When you focus on the process, you become immune to certain kinds of failure. If the goal is just to produce a perfect loaf of bread, then a flat, dense loaf is a failure. But if the goal is to understand how yeast and flour and water interact, then that flat loaf is just data. It's a lesson. The alchemist labs were full of failed experiments, explosions, strange stinks, and a lot of black goo. They called this stage the nigredo, the blackening. It was a necessary part of the process. It was the point where the old forms were destroyed to make way for the new. If you can look at a failure and see it not as an end, but as a necessary step in a longer process, you have the heart of an alchemist. You understand that the prize isn't the gold. The prize is the person you become while you're trying to make it. Number 14, are you trying to turn lead into gold? The search for the philosopher's stone, the substance that could turn base metals into gold, wasn't just about getting rich. For many alchemists, gold was the symbol of perfection, incorruptibility, and enlightenment. Turning lead into gold was a physical demonstration of a spiritual process, turning the leaden, or base parts of the human soul, into a perfected golden state. The famous alchemist Paracelsus, who lived in the early 1500s, is considered the father of toxicology. He famously stated, "The dose makes the poison," a principle still fundamental to medicine today. He believed alchemy's true purpose was to create medicines, not gold. Carl Jung, the 20th century psychologist, spent decades studying alchemical texts, believing they were a symbolic roadmap of the process of psychological integration, which he called individuation. Let's get this out of the way. You are probably not in your basement with a bellows and a crucible trying to literally transmute lead. But the core idea of alchemy, the transmutation of a base material into something more valuable, is something you might be doing every single day. This is the most fundamental sign of a modern-day alchemist. You look at something that is considered common, broken, or worthless, and you see a hidden possibility. You see the gold inside the lead. This lead can be anything. It can be a difficult situation at work. Everyone else is complaining, seeing only the problem, the heavy, dull weight of it. But you look at it and think, why can we learn from this? How can this crisis force us to be more creative? What opportunity is hidden inside this problem? That is alchemical thinking. You are refusing to accept the situation at its face value. You are initiating a process of transmutation, turning a leaden problem into a golden opportunity. It can be a person, maybe you're a manager, a teacher, or a parent. You have someone on your team or in your life that everyone else has written off. They're difficult, unmotivated, or not a team player. They are lead, but you don't give up. You look for the spark in them. You try to find the one thing they're passionate about. You give them a different kind of project. You listen to them. You try to understand their lead-in behavior instead of just judging it. And slowly over time, you see a change. They start to shine. You haven't created something from nothing. You've simply acted as a catalyst to help them find the gold that was already inside them. It can be an emotional state. We all experience lead-in emotions: grief, anger, fear, jealousy. Our culture tells us to get rid of these feelings, to suppress them or medicate them away. You know, the alchemist does something different. They don't discard the lead. They work with it. They sit with the grief, and through that painful process, it transforms into compassion and wisdom. They examine the anger, and it transforms into a powerful fuel for positive change. They face the fear, and it transforms into courage. They are not denying the base material. They are using its weight and its properties as the very starting point for creating something precious. This is the great work, the magnum opus, played out in the laboratory of your own heart. This isn't about positive thinking or just slapping a happy sticker on a bad situation. Alchemy is not easy. It's a messy, difficult, and often painful process. It requires heat and pressure. Turning a personal failure into a lesson, for example, requires a brutal level of honesty. You have to dissolve your own ego. You have to confront your own mistakes. This is the solve, et, coagula, dissolve, and coagulate of the alchemical process. You break down the old, rigid, leaden self-image and then reform it into something more flexible, more resilient, more golden. So look around your life. Where are you performing this quiet magic? Are you the one who takes leftovers and turns them into an amazing new meal? Are you the one who can calm a tense meeting and find a point of compromise? Are you the one who sees a broken object not as trash, but as a project? If you are engaged in any act of transformation, of raising something from a lower state to a higher one, you are practicing the central tenet of alchemy. You are seeing the world not as a fixed, static place, but as a dynamic laboratory full of potential. Number 13. What is your prima materia? The prima materia, or first matter, was the theoretical starting point for all things in alchemy. It was described in contradictory terms. It is everywhere but ignored by all. It is worthless but the key to all treasure. It is a poison and a cure. Some alchemists believed it was literally mercury or lead, while others believed it was a more philosophical concept like chaos or even the human soul itself. A 17th century alchemical text, the Mutus Liber Silent Book, contains no words, only a series of 15 intricate engraved plates that readers had to interpret to understand the alchemical process. Every great work needs a starting material. In alchemy, this was the prima materia. It was the raw, undifferentiated, chaotic stuff that held the potential for everything, but was, in itself, nothing special. It was often described as the stone the builders rejected. It was common, overlooked, and even disgusting. It was dirt, dust, dung, the stuff of the earth. The alchemist's first job was not to find some exotic, magical ingredient. It was to recognize the prima materia right in front of them, in the mud and the mess of the world. What is your prima materia? It's the chaotic, messy, unformed stuff in your life that you have to work with. It's not the perfect curated image you present to the world. It's the stuff behind the scenes. It's your anxieties, your doubts, your bad habits, your messy creative process. It's the difficult relationship, the dead-end job, the pile of unfinished projects. It's the blank page for a writer. It's the unorganized data for a scientist. It's the block of marble for a sculptor. Most people run from this stuff. They see it as a problem to be fixed or hidden. The modern-day alchemist sees it as the raw material. It is the indispensable starting point. Recognizing your prima materia is a radical act of acceptance. It's saying, this is what I have to work with, not what I wish I had, not the perfect circumstances I see on social media. This messy, imperfect, leaden reality is my starting point. There is immense power in this. As long as you are wishing for different ingredients, you can never begin the work. But the moment you accept your pile of lead, your chaotic first matter, the process of transmutation can begin. Think about a cook. A master chef can take the simplest ingredients, flour, water, salt, yeast, and create a magnificent loaf of bread. Those humble ingredients are the prima materia. A novice might complain, wanting fancier flour or exotic salt, believing the magic is in the ingredients. The master knows the magic is in the process and the transformation of what is already there. Do you do this? Do you take the boring leftovers in the fridge and create a surprisingly delicious meal? Do you take a simple, mundane idea and, through your focus and work, turn it into a brilliant project? That is recognizing and honoring the prima materia. This concept also frees you from the paralysis of perfection. Many people never start their great work because they are waiting for the perfect conditions, the perfect inspiration, the perfect materials. They are searching for a mythical, pure substance. The alchemist knows you don't start with purity. You start with the muck. The prima materia is often described as black, smelly, and chaotic. The first stage of the alchemical work, the nigredo, is about breaking this matter down even further, making it even blacker, until it's a homogeneous, rotten mess. You have to make things worse before you can make them better. So take a look at the muck in your life. The unfinished novel, the cluttered garage, the difficult conversation you've been avoiding, the nagging feeling of dissatisfaction. Don't turn away from it. Don't dismiss it as worthless. Look closer. That is your treasure. That is your prima materia. It is the forgotten, rejected stone that contains the seed of gold. Your work as an alchemist is to pick it up, get your hands dirty, and begin the slow, patient process of transformation. Number 12. Do you find treasure in the trash? Every year, the world generates over 2 billion tons of solid waste. It is estimated that by 2050, this will increase to 3.4 billion tons. The average American throws away approximately 4.9 pounds of trash every single day. The concept of kintsugi, the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with lacquer dusted or mixed with powdered gold, dates back to the 15th century. It treats the breakage and repair as part of the history of an object, rather than something to disguise. Our society is built on disposability. When something breaks, we throw it away and buy a new one. When a piece of clothing is out of fashion, we discard it. We are constantly chasing the new, the shiny, the untouched. This creates a mountain of waste, both physical and metaphorical. The modern-day alchemist walks against this tide. They are the menders, the fixers, the upcyclers. They see a broken chair not as garbage, but as a challenge. They see a stained shirt not as ruined, but as a canvas for creative repair. This is a very practical, hands-on form of alchemy. It's about taking something that has been declared worthless by society and, through your labor and creativity, transforming it back into something of value. It is literally turning trash into treasure. Maybe you're the person who scours flea markets and thrift stores, seeing the potential in a piece of old furniture that just needs a little sanding and a coat of paint. You are seeing the form of a beautiful table hidden within the matter of a scratched, wobbly wreck. Or perhaps you're a tinkerer, you take apart broken electronics, you salvage parts, you figure out how they work, you get a broken toaster working again. This is more than just being frugal. It's a mindset, it's a refusal to accept the manufacturer's verdict that this object's life is over. It's an assertion of your own power to understand, to mend, and to restore. The alchemists called their work the art. This is a modern expression of that art. You are working with the physical properties of things, understanding their inner workings, and bringing them from a state of brokenness to a state of wholeness. This alchemical impulse isn't just about physical objects. It extends to ideas and information. We are flooded with information, most of it disposable content. The modern alchemist sifts through this digital trash heap. They find an old, forgotten article, a piece of data from an obscure study, or a comment in a forum, and they connect it with something else. They synthesize discarded bits of information and create a new, valuable insight. They are building knowledge from the scraps that others have thrown away. The philosophy behind this is profound. It's a rejection of the illusion of perfection. The kintsugi bowl is considered more beautiful and valuable after it has been broken and repaired. The golden cracks tell a story. They speak of resilience. They honor the object's history. The alchemist who repairs, mends, and upcycles is doing the same thing. They are choosing a reality where things can be broken and still be valuable, where scars can be beautiful, where a history of wear and tear adds character, not subtracts value. This practice also cultivates a deep patience and a problem-solving mind. Repairing something is often harder than buying something new. It requires you to slow down, to diagnose the problem, to learn a new skill, to experiment. You might fail. The glue might not hold. The patch might look clumsy, but each attempt is part of the alchemical process. It's the heating, the dissolving, the testing. When you finally succeed, the satisfaction is far deeper than the hollow convenience of a one-click purchase. You haven't just acquired an object. You have participated in its renewal. You have imbued it with your own time, energy, and care. You have taken a piece of leaden junk and, through your own work, revealed the gold within it. Number 11 is your kitchen a laboratory. The Maillard reaction, responsible for the browning and delicious flavor of everything from seared steak to toasted bread, involves hundreds of complex chemical reactions between amino acids and reducing sugars. It was first described by French chemist Louis-Camille Maillard in 1912. Fermentation, one of the oldest forms of food preservation, is a metabolic process in which microorganisms like bacteria and yeast convert carbohydrates into alcohol or organic acids. Humans have been making bread using wild yeast for at least 14,000 years, long before they understood the microbiology involved. For many, the kitchen is a place of chores. For the modern alchemist, it's a laboratory. It is perhaps the most accessible and ancient laboratory we have. Here, the four classic elements earth, flour, vegetables, water, air, yeast, steam, and fire the stove are in constant play. It is a place of pure transformation. You take a collection of raw, separate, and often unpalatable ingredients, and you subject them to various processes, chopping, mixing, heating, cooling, fermenting to create a new, unified substance that is more than the sum of its parts. Think about the simple act of baking a cake. You have flour, sugar, eggs, butter. Individually, they are just ingredients, but you combine them, you subject them to the fire of the oven. And a chemical and physical transformation occurs. A liquid batter becomes a solid, airy sponge. The identity of the original ingredients is dissolved into a new, single identity cake. This is a perfect, everyday example of solvent coagula. The individual parts are dissolved, and a new, unified whole is coagulated. The kitchen alchemist is not just a cook who follows recipes, they are an experimenter. They understand that a recipe is not a rigid set of laws, but a starting point, a suggestion from a fellow researcher. They ask, what if? What if I add a different spice? What if I use brown butter instead of regular butter? What if I let this dough ferment for another day? They are not afraid of failure. A burnt dish or a flat bread is not a disaster, it's data. It's information for the next experiment. Their kitchen is filled with ongoing projects, a jar of sourdough starter bubbling on the counter, a kombucha SCOBY growing in a vat of tea, vegetables slowly pickling in a brine. These are not just food items, they are living alchemical processes unfolding over time. This practice connects you to a deep, ancient current of human history. For millennia, our ancestors were kitchen alchemists out of necessity. They had to understand how to transform raw grains into bread, how to use salt to preserve meat, how to use fermentation to make milk last longer in the form of cheese. They were engaged in a constant high-stakes dialogue with the natural world. They were practical magicians turning the raw stuff of the earth into life-sustaining nourishment. When you make your own sourdough bread, you are participating in a ritual that is thousands of years old. You are tapping into that same lineage of transformation. The kitchen is also a place where you work with time. Some transformations are fast and violent, like searing a steak on a hot pan. Others are slow and patient, like the aging of cheese or the slow rendering of fat. The alchemist understands these different rhythms. They know when to apply intense heat and when to let something rest, when to act and when to wait. This teaches a profound lesson that extends far beyond the kitchen. Some changes require intense effort, and others simply require time and the right conditions. So if you find joy in the process of cooking, not just the eating, if you love experimenting with flavors and techniques, if your countertops are home to bubbling ferments and strange concoctions, if you see a pile of raw vegetables as a world of possibility, then your kitchen is your alchemical workshop. You are taking the base materials of the earth and elevating them. You are turning simple sustenance into a form of art and science. You are practicing one of the oldest and most fundamental forms of magic, the transformation of the raw into the cooked, the bland into the delicious, the separate into the whole. Number 10, do you work in an inner laboratory? Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections, occurs throughout life. It was once believed that the brain was a physiologically static organ after the critical period of early childhood. We now know this is false. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, a key figure in Stoic philosophy, kept a personal journal, now known as the Meditations. It wasn't written for publication, it was a practical tool for his own self-improvement, a workbook for his inner alchemy. It takes, on average, 66 days for a new behavior to become automatic, though this can vary wildly from 18 to 254 days, depending on the person and the behavior. The most important laboratory for the alchemist was never the physical one. It was the self. The external work with metals and chemicals was always a mirror for the internal work of transforming the soul. The goal was to purify the self, to burn away the dross of ego, fear, and ignorance, and to arrive at a state of integrated, authentic being. This is the great work. The modern-day alchemist is deeply engaged in this inner work, whether they call it that or not. This inner laboratory is where you experiment on your own consciousness. Your tools are not alembics and crucibles, but practices like journaling, meditation, therapy, self-reflection, and mindfulness. You are taking the raw material of your own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, and you are observing them, analyzing them, and consciously working to transform them. Do you have a practice of self-observation? Perhaps you keep a journal. You write down your thoughts and feelings not just to vent, but to understand them. You look for patterns, you see how your mood is affected by your sleep, or how a certain type of situation triggers a specific emotional response. This is the first stage of the work observation. The alchemist had to patiently watch their materials to understand their nature before they could hope to change them. You are doing the same with the material of your own mind, or maybe your practice is meditation. You sit and simply watch your thoughts come and go without judgment. This is a powerful alchemical process. You are separating your consciousness, the observer, from the contents of your consciousness, the thoughts. This is a form of distillation, purifying the observer from the chaotic flow of the mind. You begin to realize you are not your thoughts. You are the one who is aware of your thoughts. This creates a space, and in that space, freedom and choice become possible. This inner work is often a process of solve et coagula. You might go to therapy to solve an old, rigid belief system or a past trauma that is holding you back. This can be a painful, chaotic process. It feels like falling apart. That is the negretto, the blackening, the descent into the underworld of your own psyche. But after the dissolving comes the coagula, the reintegration. You put the pieces back together in a new, healthier, more resilient way. You form a new identity that is not defined by the old wound. The modern alchemist is a lifelong learner, not just of external subjects, but of their own inner world. They are willing to be wrong. They are willing to change their mind. They see a character flaw not as a permanent stain, but as a piece of lead to be worked on. They see a bad habit not as a moral failing, but as a misaligned system that can be understood and redesigned. They are applying heat and pressure to their own personality. They are consciously trying to burn away the inessential and cultivate the essential. This is the hardest work there is, and it's work that is never truly finished. There is no final, perfect, golden state. The goal is the process itself, the ongoing commitment to self-awareness and self-transformation. If you are someone who actively works on yourself, who faces your own shadows, who tries to turn your psychological lead into gold, you are engaged in the truest and most ancient form of alchemy. Number 9, are you a social catalyst? The Dunbar's number is a suggested cognitive limit to the number of people with whom one can maintain stable social relationships. The number proposed in the 1990s by British anthropologist Robin Dunbar is typically around 150. The salon culture of 17th and 18th century France, run mostly by influential women, was a key incubator for the ideas of the Enlightenment. These gatherings brought together philosophers, writers, and artists to exchange ideas in a way that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. A 2018 study found that social isolation significantly increases a person's risk of premature death from all causes, a risk that may rival those of smoking, obesity, and physical inactivity. Alchemy is often seen as a solitary pursuit, a lone figure toiling away in a hidden lab. But there is another kind of alchemy, a social alchemy, that is about transforming groups of people. The social alchemist is a catalyst. They have the unique ability to take a collection of separate, sometimes conflicting individuals and facilitate their transformation into a cohesive, collaborative, and creative whole. Are you the person who introduces two friends who you just know will get along, and they end up becoming best friends or business partners? Are you the one at a party who brings different groups of people together, moving between them, finding common ground, and weaving a single, lively conversation out of many separate ones? Are you the one in a work meeting who can listen to all the competing arguments and then synthesize them into a solution that everyone can agree on? If so, you are a social alchemist. The raw material, the prima materia, in this case is the group of people itself, with all its individual egos, agendas, and histories. This can be a very chaotic and volatile starting point. The social alchemist doesn't impose their will on the group. Instead, they create the right container, the right conditions for the transformation to happen on its own. This container might be a well-run meeting, a thoughtfully planned dinner party, a safe and respectful online community, or a collaborative project. This process requires a special set of skills. It requires deep listening. The social alchemist listens not just to what is being said, but to what is being left unsaid. They listen for the needs, fears, and desires that lie beneath the surface of people's words. It also requires a kind of heat, but not the heat of conflict. It's the heat of a compelling question, a shared goal, or an inspiring vision. This is the energy that gets the molecules of the group moving and interacting. Think about a great band. You have 4 or 5 musicians, each with their own talent and ego. Separately, they are just a guitarist, a drummer, a bassist, a singer. But when they come together and truly connect, something new is created. A 5th entity, the band, emerges. It has its own unique sound and personality that is more than the sum of its individual members. The person who brings that band together and helps them navigate their creative differences to find that unified sound is a social alchemist. This kind of alchemy is desperately needed in our world. We live in a time of deep division and social fragmentation. We are sorted into our own bubbles and echo chambers. The social alchemist is the one who dares to cross these boundaries. They build bridges, they create spaces where people with different perspectives can actually talk to each other. They don't try to make everyone agree. Instead, they try to foster a sense of shared humanity that allows for disagreement without dehumanization. They are trying to turn the lead of social discord into the gold of a functioning community. This is often a thankless and invisible job. The best facilitators make it look easy. The conversation just flows. The project just comes together. The community just works. But Behind that ease is the careful, patient, and highly skilled work of the social alchemist. They are dissolving individual egos into a collective purpose. They are taking the raw material of human connection and transforming it into something strong, beautiful, and productive. Number 8, can you turn an idea into a thing? The first commercially successful typewriter was patented in 1868. Before that, the idea of a personal printing machine was a fantasy. It required the transmutation of a complex concept into a functional mechanical object. Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks are filled with hundreds of inventions, from a flying machine to a tank, that were purely conceptual in his time. He was a master at the alchemical stage of turning imagination into concrete design, even if the technology to build them didn't exist yet. The process of writing a novel involves turning a vague, ephemeral feeling or concept into hundreds of pages of specific, structured text, a massive act of alchemical coagulation. All things that exist in the man-made world were once just an idea. A chair, a phone, a song, a company, a bookstore. They all started as a spark in someone's mind. This is the prima materia of the innovator, the artist, the entrepreneur. It is a formless, weightless, invisible thing. The work of this kind of alchemist is to take that ethereal idea and bring it down to earth. It is to give it form, structure, and substance. It is the process of turning the unseen into the seen. Do you have a habit of making your ideas real? You're not just a dreamer who talks about all the things you could do. You are a builder, a maker, a doer. You get an idea for a story and you actually sit down and write it. You have a vision for a better way to organize a system at work, and you create the spreadsheet, write the proposal, and implement it. You think of a tune in your head, and you pick up a guitar and figure out the chords. This is a powerful form of alchemy. This process follows the classic alchemical stages. The initial idea is often chaotic and exciting. It's the first matter. Then comes the negrito, the blackening. This is the messy middle. It's where you confront the reality of the work. The writing is harder than you thought. The code has bugs. The wood for your project splits. Your initial perfect vision seems to be dying. This is the point where most people give up. The alchemist knows this is a necessary stage. The initial naive idea must be broken down and dissolved before it can be reformed into something real and strong. Then comes the work of coagula, of bringing it all together. This requires discipline, patience, and a whole new set of skills. It's not enough to have a great idea for a business. You also have to figure out logistics, marketing, and finance. It's not enough to have a vision for a painting. You have to master the techniques of color mixing and brushwork. This is the slow, painstaking work of giving your idea a body. You are taking the spirit of the idea and infusing it into matter. This applies to any creative or constructive act. The programmer who turns a functional requirement into clean working code is an alchemist. The event planner who turns a client's vague wish for a fun party into a specific magical evening is an alchemist. The entrepreneur who takes a solution to a problem and builds a company around it is an alchemist. They are all wrestling with the same fundamental challenge: how to translate the language of the imagination into the language of the physical world. This ability is a kind of superpower in the modern world. Many people are trapped in the world of ideas. They consume, they comment, they critique, but they don't create. The modern alchemist, on the other hand, is a producer. They are not content to let their ideas remain as ghosts. They feel a deep-seated need to make them tangible, to test them against reality. This process is often frustrating. The final product is never quite as perfect as the initial vision. But the alchemist understands this. The goal is not to create a perfect object. The goal is to participate in the sacred act of creation, to be a conduit through which a new thing can enter the world. Number 7, do you find gold in your grit? Post-traumatic growth, PTG, is a psychological concept that describes the positive personal changes that can occur after a traumatic event. It was first developed in the mid-1990s by psychologists Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun. The ancient Stoics like Seneca and Epictetus practiced a form of negative visualization, imagining the worst-case scenarios in life in order to build resilience and appreciate what they had. This was a proactive alchemical process for turning fear into gratitude. The Japanese concept of gamin means enduring the seemingly unbearable with patience and dignity. It is seen as a valuable trait, a kind of internal strength. Life is full of lead. It comes in the form of failure, heartbreak, loss, illness, and disappointment. These are the heavy, dense, and dark experiences that can weigh us down. The common reaction is to see these events as purely negative, as things to be avoided, lamented, or forgotten as quickly as possible. The alchemist has a different perspective. They know that these lead-in experiences, as painful as they are also a potent source of raw material for transformation. They are masters at finding the gold in the grit. This is not about pretending that bad things are good. It is not about toxic positivity. The alchemist does not deny the pain. In fact, they go into it. The first stage of this process is to fully experience the negredo, the blackening. It is to sit with the grief, to feel the sting of failure, to acknowledge the reality of the loss. You cannot transform something you are running away from. You must first accept the lead for what it is, heavy, dark, and real. But you don't stay there. Once the initial breakdown has occurred, the alchemical process of extraction begins. You start to ask different questions. Instead of, why did this happen to me, you ask, what can I learn from this? How did this experience change me? What strength did I discover in myself that I didn't know I had? You are sifting through the ashes of the experience, looking for the tiny, indestructible flecks of gold. This gold can take many forms. A painful breakup can, over time, be transmuted into a deeper understanding of what you need in a relationship and a newfound sense of self-reliance. Being fired from a job can, in retrospect, be seen as the catalyst that pushed you to find your true calling or start your own business. A serious illness can be transformed into a profound appreciation for the simple fact of being alive and a reordering of your life's priorities. This is the process of creating a new narrative. You are taking the raw data of a negative event and reframing it. You are not changing the facts, but you are changing the meaning you assign to those facts. This is one of the most powerful forms of mental alchemy. You are turning a story of victimhood into a story of resilience. You are turning a wound into a source of wisdom. The scar remains, but it is no longer just a reminder of the pain. It becomes a symbol of your ability to heal and grow. Think of people you admire for their wisdom or compassion. Chances are they have been through significant hardship. Their depth did not come from an easy life. It was forged in the fire of adversity. They are living proof of this alchemical principle. They took the lead that life gave them, and through a long and difficult internal process, transformed it into the gold of character. If you have a tendency to do this, you are a modern-day alchemist. If you can look back on the hardest times in your life and honestly say, I wouldn't trade that experience because it made me who I am today, you have mastered the art of turning lead into gold. You understand that the hottest fires forge the strongest steel, and that the darkest nights make the stars shine brightest. You are not defined by what happens to you. You are defined by what you make from it. Number 6, do you live by natural rhythms? The circadian rhythm is the 24-hour internal clock that is running in the background of your brain and cycles between sleepiness and alertness. It's also known as your sleep-wake cycle. Disrupting it has been linked to various health problems. Before the invention of artificial light, most human sleep patterns were dictated by the sun, often involving a first sleep and a second sleep with a period of wakefulness in the middle of the night. The ancient agricultural calendar was entirely structured around the seasons, dictating not just when to plant and harvest, but also when to celebrate, rest, and work. Our modern world tries to operate in a straight line. It's a world of 24/7 productivity, of artificial lights that turn night into day, of supermarkets that give us strawberries in winter. We have been conditioned to believe that life should be a story of constant, linear, upward growth. We've forgotten that nature and life itself works in cycles. The modern alchemist feels this disconnect in their bones. They are instinctively drawn back to the rhythms of the natural world. Are you sensitive to the seasons? Do you feel a burst of creative energy in the spring, a desire to be social and outgoing in the summer, a need to turn inward and get organized in the autumn, and a pull toward rest and reflection in the winter? You're not just being moody. You are aligning yourself with the ancient energetic cycles of the earth. The alchemists were obsessed with planetary and seasonal cycles, believing that certain work should only be undertaken at certain auspicious times. You are practicing a modern, intuitive version of this. This connection to cycles might show up in your hobbies. Perhaps you are a gardener. You are in a direct, hands-on relationship with the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. You plant a seed in the dark earth, the negrito. You watch it sprout into the light, the albedo, the whitening. You nurture it to fruition and harvest its vibrant fruits, the rubedo, the reddening. And then in the fall, the plant dies back, its energy returning to the soil to nourish the next cycle. Gardening is a living parable of the entire alchemical process, or maybe you are drawn to the cycles of the moon. You notice your energy and moods shift with the lunar phases. You feel a pull to start new projects on the new moon and to release what no longer serves you on the full moon. This isn't about superstition. It's about using an external, natural rhythm as a mirror and a guide for your own inner processes of growth and release. It's a way of structuring your life that is in harmony with something larger than your own ego. This mindset also provides a powerful antidote to burnout. A culture of linear growth demands that we are always on, always producing, always getting better. This is unnatural and unsustainable. The alchemist who lives by cycles understands that there is a time for action and a time for rest. There is a time for planting and a time for letting the field lie fallow. They don't see the winter periods of their lifetimes of rest, low energy, or seeming unproductivity as failures. They understand them as a necessary and vital part of the cycle. It is in this dark, quiet time that the seeds for the next spring are gestating. Living this way is a form of quiet rebellion. It is choosing to listen to the wisdom of your own body and the earth over the frantic demands of a machine-like culture. It's about recognizing that growth is not a straight lineup, it's a spiral. We cycle back to similar themes and challenges in our lives, but each time we approach them from a higher level of understanding. If you find yourself organizing your life around these natural pulses, if you honor the need for both work and rest, for both outward action and inward reflection, you are practicing a deep and ancient form of alchemy. You are synchronizing your personal laboratory with the great laboratory of the cosmos. Number 5, do you enjoy the process of trial and error? Thomas Edison and his team famously tested over 6,000 different plant-based materials for a light bulb filament before finding a carbonized bamboo filament that worked, lasting over 1,200 hours. He is often quoted as saying, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." James Dyson created 5,127 prototypes of his bagless vacuum cleaner before he got it right. This process took him about 15 years. The scientific method itself is a structured form of alchemical experimentation form, a hypothesis, a theory, conduct an experiment, apply heat pressure, observe the results, the transformation, and refine the hypothesis. Most people are terrified of failure. Our school systems and workplaces often punish it. We are taught that there is a right answer and a wrong answer. The goal is to get it right on the first try. The alchemist knows this is nonsense. For the alchemist, the laboratory is not a place for performance, it is a place for experimentation. And experimentation, by its very nature, is a process of trial and error. Do you have a tinkerer's mindset? You're not afraid to take things apart to see how they work, even if you're not sure you can put them back together. You love to try a new recipe, a new coding language, a new route to work, just to see what happens. You see failure not as a judgment on your worth, but simply as a surprising result. It's information, it's data. This mindset is the heart of the alchemical operator. The alchemist's journals were filled with failed experiments. They were constantly mixing the wrong things, applying too much heat, or misinterpreting a text. Their labs were probably places of great frustration, filled with strange smells and the occasional small explosion. But each failure taught them something. It taught them the properties of the materials they were working with. It ruled out a pathway. It forced them to reconsider their theories. The path to the philosopher's stone was paved with a mountain of failed attempts. If you have this trait, you probably enjoy the process of learning a new skill. You accept that you will be bad at it at first. You will hit wrong notes on the guitar. Your first painting will be a mess. Your first attempt at writing a story will be clumsy. You don't let this stop you. You embrace the awkward fumbling stage of being a beginner. You understand that this is the Negredo of skill acquisition. You have to break down your old sense of competence and be willing to look foolish before you can build a new skill. This love of experimentation makes you resilient. People who are afraid of failure often become paralyzed. They stick to what they know, they don't take risks, their world gets smaller. The alchemist, on the other hand, is constantly pushing the boundaries of their knowledge. They are comfortable in the space of not knowing. They are willing to say, I don't know the answer to this, but let's try something and see what happens. This is the engine of all discovery and innovation. This mindset also fosters a sense of playfulness. When the pressure to get it right is removed, work can become play. You are free to be curious, to be creative, to make a mess. Think of a child building with blocks. They are not worried about building the perfect tower. They are exploring, they are testing the laws of physics, they are seeing what's possible. They build a tower, it falls down, they laugh, and they start again. The modern alchemist retains this childlike sense of curiosity and play in their work. So, if you are someone who learns by doing, who is not afraid to break things, who sees failure as a teacher, and who finds joy in the messy process of figuring things out, you have the spirit of an alchemist. Your life is your laboratory, and you are constantly running experiments. You know that wisdom is not found in a textbook of right answers, but is earned through the hands-on, often frustrating, but ultimately rewarding process of trial and error. Number 4, are you an expert distiller? The process of distillation, heating a liquid to create vapor and then collecting the cooled, condensed vapor, has been used since at least the 1st century AD. It was a core technique for alchemists, used to separate a substance into its pure components, separating the spirit alcohol from the body water and other impurities. The principle of Occam's razor, often summarized as the simplest explanation is usually the best one, is a form of intellectual distillation. It's about stripping away unnecessary complexity to find the core truth. The average business professional sends and receives over 120 emails per day, a constant flood of undistilled information. We are drowning in information. We have endless news feeds, complex data sets, constant notifications, and lengthy jargon-filled reports. Most of this is just noise. It is the crude matter, the unrefined substance. The modern alchemist has a rare and valuable skill. They are an expert distiller. They can take a massive, complex, and overwhelming amount of information and extract the simple, pure, and essential truth from it. Are you the person in a meeting who can listen to an hour of rambling discussion and then say, "So, it sounds like the real issue is X"? Do you have a knack for taking a complicated technical manual and explaining it to someone in a way they can actually understand? Are you a great teacher, mentor, or writer who can take a huge subject and break it down into its core principles? If you do this, you are practicing the alchemical art of distillation. This process is about separating the spirit from the body. The body is all the extra stuff, the jargon, the filler words, the redundant data, the emotional drama, the corporate speak. The spirit is the essential message, the core idea, the signal and the noise. The distiller applies an intellectual heat to the raw information. This heat is the power of focused attention and critical thinking. They ask questions like, what is the most important part of this? What is the underlying principle here? What can be safely ignored? This skill is not about dumbing things down. It's the opposite. It is an act of profound intelligence and clarity. It takes a much deeper understanding of a subject to explain it simply than it does to explain it in a complex way. Anyone can hide behind jargon and complexity. It takes a master to be clear. The alchemist who has successfully distilled a concept has purified it. They have boiled away all the impurities and captured its potent essence. This applies to our own experiences as well. Our lives are a constant stream of events, thoughts, and feelings. A modern alchemist periodically distills their own life. They reflect, they journal, they try to find the lesson or the theme in a series of chaotic events. They are trying to extract wisdom from raw experience. A journal is like an alchemical apparatus. You pour in the raw, messy events of the day, and through the process of writing and reflection, You hope to distill a drop or two of pure insight. In a world that rewards complexity and endless content creation, the distiller is a force for sanity. They create value not by adding more, but by taking away the non-essential. A great editor is an alchemical distiller, cutting away the weak sentences to let the strong ones shine. A great leader is a distiller, cutting through the confusion to provide a clear and simple vision. A great scientist is a distiller, taking a universe of data and finding a single, elegant equation that explains it. If you have a low tolerance for fluff and a deep appreciation for clarity, if you find satisfaction in summarizing, simplifying, and getting to the point, then you are a master of this subtle art. You are providing a vital service in an age of information overload. You are taking the crude oil of raw data and refining it into the high-octane fuel of genuine understanding. Number 3 is your real work a secret. Many of the most famous alchemists published their work under pseudonyms or attributed it to mythical figures like Hermes Trismegistus to avoid persecution from religious authorities who viewed their work as heresy. The alchemical motto VITRIOL is an acronym for the Latin phrase Visita interiora terrae rectificando invenies occultum lapidem, which means visit the interior of the earth, and by rectifying you will find the hidden stone. This was an instruction for an inner journey, not a literal mining expedition. The great work, or magnum opus, was a personal and spiritual quest, and the physical experiments were often a cover or a meditative support for this secret inner work. We live in a culture of external validation. Success is measured by job titles, salaries, follower counts, and public recognition. We are encouraged to build a personal brand and perform our lives for an audience. The modern alchemist is often moving in the opposite direction. Their most important work, their great work, is an inside job. And it's often a secret, not because it's shameful, but because it's private, personal, and can't be measured by the outside world. You know, is there a part of your life that you dedicate serious effort to, but that has no external reward? It's not for a promotion. It's not for social media likes. It's not even something you talk about much. This is your secret work. It might be your spiritual practice. It might be the work you do to be a more patient parent. It might be your dedicated effort to overcome a deep-seated fear. It might be your private, unpublished, creative work that you do just for the love of it. This is your magnum opus. The alchemist knew that the real transmutation had to happen within the alchemist himself. The quest for the philosopher's stone was a quest for their own integrated, perfected soul. This work is, by its nature, invisible. No one can see you wrestling with your own ego. No one can give you an award for forgiving someone who hurt you. No one can measure your progress in becoming a more compassionate person. This is work that happens in the quiet, hidden laboratory of your own heart. This inner work is what gives your outer life its substance and meaning. Someone might see you as a successful business person, but your secret work might be the practice of integrity that guides all your decisions. Someone might see you as a talented artist, but your secret work might be the daily battle against self-doubt that allows you to create in the first place. The outer success is just a byproduct, a shadow cast by the inner reality. Having a secret inner work makes you less dependent on the opinions of others. When your sense of self-worth is tied to an internal process, you are not so easily swayed by praise or criticism. You have an anchor, you have a true north that is independent of the shifting winds of public opinion. The alchemist was secretive to protect himself from the ignorant masses and the authorities. The modern alchemist is secretive to protect their inner work from the corrosive effects of a culture obsessed with image and external validation. This doesn't mean you have to be a hermit. It just means you recognize a distinction between your public role and your private self, between your job and your work. Your job is what you get paid for. Your work is what you were put on this earth to do. For the alchemist, the real work was the transformation of the self. The rest was just a day job. So what is your secret work? What is the thing you are patiently, quietly, and persistently working on in the background of your life? It is the long-term project of forging your own character. It is the slow, unglamorous process of turning the lead of your own flaws and weaknesses into the gold of integrity and wisdom. If you have this private, sacred commitment, you understand the most profound secret of all alchemy. The only gold worth having is the gold you find within. Number 2, do you see the world in 3 stages? The three primary alchemical stages are nigredo blackening, albedo whitening, and rubedo reddening. These were seen as necessary steps in the creation of the philosopher's stone. The nigredo represented decomposition, chaos, and the dark night of the soul. The albedo represented purification, washing, and the dawning of light. The rubedo represented the final unification, the marriage of opposites, and the attainment of the goal. These stages were applied to everything from chemical processes to psychological and spiritual development. Life can often feel like a random series of chaotic events, but the alchemist sees a deeper pattern. They intuitively understand that all transformative processes, whether in nature, in a creative project, or in personal growth, tend to follow a three-stage pattern: breakdown, purification, and reintegration. You might not use the old Latin terms, but if you recognize this pattern in your life, you have a deep instinctual understanding of the alchemical worldview. The first stage is the nigredo, the blackening. This is the beginning of any significant change. It's a stage of chaos, confusion, and dissolution. It's when the old form has to die. This is the messy first draft of a novel. It's the painful end of a relationship. It's the uncomfortable feeling of being a complete beginner at a new skill. It's the crisis that shatters your old worldview. This stage is dark and often feels like failure or even death. Most people try to avoid the nigredo at all costs. The alchemist knows it is an essential and unavoidable first step. You must break down the raw material before you can build it into something new. The second stage is the albedo, the whitening. After the chaos of the breakdown, a new clarity begins to emerge. This is the stage of purification and insight. You've survived the crisis, and now you begin to see the lesson. You've written the messy first draft, and now you begin to see the true story that is hidden within it. You've grieved the relationship, and now you begin to understand yourself more clearly. This is the aha moment. It is the light at the end of the tunnel. It is a feeling of hope, of new possibility, of being washed clean. It is the emergence of a new, pure understanding from the ashes of the old. The third and final stage is the rubedo, the reddening. This is the integration of the new insight into your life. It's not enough to have the ha moment, you have to embody it. This is the stage where you take your newfound wisdom and make it real. You take your purified understanding and you live it. It is the finished, edited, and published novel. It is entering into a new, healthier relationship armed with the lessons of the past. It is the successful integration of your new skill into your life. The rubedo is symbolized by red, the color of blood, of life, of passion. It is the successful union of spirit and matter. It is the new integrated self living and breathing in the world. Do you see this pattern in your own life? When you look back at your greatest moments of growth, do they follow this sequence? A painful breakdown, followed by a period of dawning clarity, followed by the creation of a new, stronger reality. If you recognize this, you can learn to trust the process, especially when you are in the dark and scary nigredo stage. You know from experience that this chaos is not the end of the story. It is the necessary beginning. This three-stage model is a map for navigating change. It gives you a framework for understanding the often confusing journey of transformation. It teaches you patience. It teaches you to honor the dark and difficult times as much as the moments of light and success. It shows you that every ending is a beginning, and that every death leads to a resurrection. If you see the world through this lens, you are not just living your life. You are consciously participating in your own magnum opus. Number one, what are unifying? The ultimate goal of the alchemical great work was often described as the conjunctio, or the sacred marriage. This was the unification of opposites, the sun and the moon, the king and the queen, spirit and matter, masculine and feminine, conscious and unconscious. The symbol for this was the rebes, a two-headed, androgynous figure representing a state of perfect integration and wholeness. The famous alchemical saying, "As above, so below," speaks to this unification, the idea that the patterns of the cosmos are reflected in the patterns of the individual soul and vice versa. At its heart, alchemy is the art of unification. It is about taking things that are separate, opposed, or in conflict, and bringing them together to create a new, higher unity. This is the final and most profound sign of the modern-day alchemist. Your life's work, in some form or another, is about healing separation and creating wholeness. Look at your life. Where are you trying to bridge a gap? Perhaps it's the gap between your ideals and your reality. You have a vision for a better world or a better you, and you are working every day to close the distance between that vision and the way things actually are. You are trying to unite your above with your below, or maybe you are trying to unite the different parts of yourself. We all have conflicting parts within us, a part that wants security and a part that craves adventure, a logical, analytical part and a creative, intuitive part, a vulnerable, childlike part, and a capable, adult part. Our culture often asks us to choose one and suppress the other. The alchemist works to create a dialogue between these parts. They strive to build an inner life where the head and the heart can work together, where logic and intuition can inform each other. They are seeking the conjunctio within their own psyche. This drive for unification can also manifest in your external work. Are you someone who brings together different disciplines? A scientist who uses art to communicate their findings, and an artist who incorporates technology into their work? You are dissolving the artificial boundaries between different fields of knowledge to create something new and integrated. Perhaps your work is about connecting people. You are trying to heal the rifts in your family, your community, or in the wider world. You believe in dialogue over debate. You look for common ground. You try to help people see the humanity in their opponents. You are working against the forces of fragmentation and division, trying to weave a stronger, more unified social fabric. This is the most challenging alchemical work of all. It is easier to live in a world of black and white, of us versus them, of right versus wrong. It is much harder to hold the tension of the opposites. It is hard to accept that life is both beautiful and tragic, that people are both good and bad, that you yourself are both flawed and worthy. The alchemist is someone who is willing to stand in that uncomfortable, paradoxical space and work toward a synthesis. This is the ultimate meaning of turning lead into gold. Lead represents the fragmented, heavy, conflicted state of our ordinary lives. Gold represents the unified, radiant, integrated state of our full potential. The work is about taking all the scattered pieces of your life, your successes and your failures, your joys and your sorrows, your strengths and your weaknesses, and melting them down in the crucible of your heart to forge them into a single, shining, authentic whole. If this deep, underlying drive for connection and wholeness resonates with you, then you are truly an alchemist. Your life may not be about fame or fortune. It is about something far more precious. It is about the quiet, sacred, and lifelong work of making things whole again. And in a broken and fragmented world, there is no work more vital and no gold more real.